then sign up okay on the lines when you see it, and I'll give you your receipt/ticket.
So a map to the museum. We're 2 floors, first floor and second floor.
I feel like going home to bed, but it's only noon.
You better treat me with more respect. Someday I may be somebody's mother.
Dancing is the only pure art form.
I always thought Beethoven was a native of Minnesota.
I'm not a fast budget anymore. Now I'm just plain ordinary.
Being dirty is practical. I'm never bothered by girls or mosquitoes.
What's the good of having naturally curly hair if nobody's jealous?
Subtraction is the awful feeling that you know less today than you did yesterday. I got 6 compliments today. 2 of them were even sincere. Some of us think we look kind of cute with our glasses.
I'm about to give a talk on Mr. Schulz in the studio here in a couple of seconds. You're more than welcome to stay for it. It'll start in a couple of seconds. So you're looking at what he would have looked at every day. The studio was located on this property. This property, by the way, is 22 acres. It includes the parking lot that you parked in. And you remember a baseball field next to the parking lot? He created that baseball field so that neighborhood kids would have a place to play baseball. It also includes the ice arena across the street. Why the ice arena? Well, he was born and raised in Minnesota. He grew up with ice hockey. He loved the game of ice hockey. And it stayed with him for all of his life. By the way, the only reason that he came to California was because his wife said it's too cold in Minnesota. And when your wife tells you to move, guess what? You move. A lot of people thought that he lived on this property. He actually lived in the town of Sebastopol, which is a couple miles to the west. He had a studio in Sebastopol, but unfortunately it burnt down. So he had to find a new location for his studio, and he found this location. So he was actually commuting from home to work here. This was his drawing board for 40 years. That was his chair for 30 years. He was the kind of man who liked certain things a certain way. Old guys like me, we hold on to old cars, old trucks. He was that way. He kind of liked to stay with the same things, so that's why he held on to that drawing board. It even applied to the pens that he used. He found out that the pen company that made those pens was going out of business, so he bought up their entire inventory so that he could have that particular pen. By the way, it's a very famous pen that a lot of cartoonists use. This is a picture of his second wife, Jeannie Schulz. Jeannie Schulz had 2 children from a previous marriage, so he ends up with 7 children. By the way, this is Mr. Schulz with his favorite dog, Andy. You notice Andy is not a beagle, so it wasn't beagle, beagle, beagle all the time. Andy was just a mutt that he found in the dog pound, and he loved Andy. Andy was like a third leg. He was always next to Mrs. Schulz. Jeannie Schulz, he could not have married a better woman to preserve his legacy. Jeannie Schulz is well educated, smart, and very articulate. She's the reason that you're standing in this museum right now. He himself, he was a very modest man. He didn't think that he really deserved a museum. He never saw this museum. He saw the plans for it. He died in 2000. This museum was constructed in 2002, 2 years after he passed away. So he never saw the museum. Time in the studio. He would be in the studio Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Sound familiar? Yeah, like a regular job. He loved doing peanuts. He loved working hard at peanuts. As a result, he was always ahead of the newspapers by at least 2 months. You know, sometimes you can get into a funk, right? You can't think of something to draw. He had that 2-month flexibility. He would produce strips this size here for the dailies. They would be sent into the publisher and turned into printing plates so they could be reduced down to newspaper size. He basically produced a strip a day, output. When you came into the museum, you saw the tile mural wall with Charlie Brown trying to kick the football, and you went up closer to it, you noticed it was made out of strips, right? Well, there's a total of 3,500 strips in that wall. That's equivalent to 10 years of his work. Interesting concept that you see 10 years of his work right in front of you. And let me leave you with one last story that I think just sums it up. And he took this from real life, friends, and his best friend told me this story. The best friend said one day they were playing tennis, and the best friend was having a bad day. Nothing was going right. He blew a really easy shot. So he went up to the post in frustration, and he just bashed his tennis racket. Just bashed it. And he threw it on the court, and he said something to the effect, well, they don't make tennis rackets like they used to. So he's looking back at Mr. Schulz right up on the other side of the court. And Mr. Schulz is just laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. So the friend says, hey, you think this is pretty funny, don't you? And Mr. Schulz kept laughing and laughing and laughing. So the friend gives up, right? They finish the game, they go home. The friend tells me that 2 weeks later, he gets a framed Sunday strip. And it's Snoopy playing tennis. And guess what Snoopy does in the strip? Exactly what had happened 2 weeks earlier. By the way, the punchline on the strip was Snoopy on his little typewriter writes a letter to the tennis racket manufacturer saying, you make defective rackets. So humor comes through. And that's how we draw from real life. Thank you folks for visiting the museum. If you have any questions, be glad to answer them for you.
Yep, why not?